A walk-on in American college athletics is an athlete who becomes part of our team without actually being awarded a scholarship to do it. Every now and then, a walk-on may so impress the coaching staff with their play and practice, they become part of the team. But the best part, it is these players who achieve success often become the inspiration for others. Our guest today is named Richie Contartesi, who now takes the lessons that he learned on and off the field and wakes up every day in the service of others, inspiring them to reach beyond their own grasp and to create their proverbial walk-on opportunities. He went on to play professionally, wrote a #1 bestseller, opened a franchising 24/7 functional fitness facility, but now put all of that together, he travels the globe delivering inspiring and actionable keynotes, along with coaching and workshops to organizations who want to engage and develop the younger workforce into peak performers who never want to leave so everyone can make a bigger impact. But the best part, every one of you out there has the opportunity to walk on to wherever it is you choose. And look to people like Richie, who wake up to help you to be the walk-on to reach beyond that grasp. And Richie, thank you and welcome to A Climb to the Top.
Absolutely, man. Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
And it's great having you. Well, I think your story, while there are probably a lot of origins, as you were growing up, did you always dream of professional athletics as something you could do, whether you walked on or were picked? Was that a goal?
100%. So actually, when I was in 5th grade, I hit rock bottom. Parents got divorced, and I failed 5th grade. And there was a moment that completely changed my life, and that's when I actually went on the internet to look up the academic requirements to play big time college football. And when I looked at those requirements, I wasn't like, oh no, I could definitely do that, no problem. But it was like, that's what I'm going to do. I have no idea the road. I have no idea the path, but that is what I'm going to do. Like, that is the dream.
Yet you were at this really rock bottom place contemplating how to find a peak. Was that an accident or is that just happenstance?
No, I mean, like, so I would play football on the streets all the time, but and I loved it. Like, it was the only thing that I really loved. Like, everyone in my neighborhood was much older than me, but there was one constant in my life, and that was when I went out on the streets and I played football, I forgot about everything else. I forgot about the grades, the school,
Right.
the family problems.
And even though you had failed 5th grade, was that a determining factor in how you were going to overcome the adversity and you had something to shoot for?
100%, like, because that was it.
Yeah.
It was it. And I've shared this. I share this from stage all the time, but I didn't have a reason to live, and I did contemplate not being here anymore. Right. There was nothing. I mean, no family. My friends were, whatever. And then after I failed 5th grade, it was just like I just didn't want to be here anymore, and that was the only thing that kept me going.
And did you contemplate the completion of suicide?
100%. Yeah. I definitely did. I mean, that's a tough question. I mean, I contemplated it quite a bit. And if it wasn't for that one dream and that one thing I had to finally shoot for, right, I probably wouldn't be here today.
No, and I appreciate that. But as I think about that, and I think the lessons for our listeners, Richie, there is so much anxiety and depression. But I think even if we set that aside, people who don't feel they have the will to fight for the thing that they even contemplate, could I do that thing that seems unachievable? And yet you have dedicated your career to help people in that adversity. Did it start with walking on to Ole Miss and joining the team, or did that start in 5th grade as you learned to evolve and find a happy place?
Yeah, so it happened when I was in 5th grade, when I was young, and I'm just gonna quick share a story about this method, that how I've lived my whole life and what got me out of it. So basically, at that time, I was a terrible baseball player, but it was something that I did. My dad loved baseball, so I played baseball. It wasn't like football was my dream, but I played baseball as, kids, we all played baseball. And I was a horrible baseball player. And every time I would go up to bat, I would strike out and I would cry. And every time I missed a pop fly or a ground ball, and I would cry. And it was like this whole thing. And I would cry not because I missed the ball or struck out. I would cry because I felt like I was letting my dad down.
Right.
And I had a coach that during this period of time completely changed my life. I went up to the plate, I struck out, and he calls me to the side and he goes, "Richie, I have one question for you." He goes, "What's the most important play?" And I was frustrated and angry, and I didn't really answer the question. And he kind of whispered to me, he goes, "The next play." And I was not happy at the time. And so I just was like, okay, whatever. And, kind of brushed it off. But as I thought about it, I was like, man, that kind of actually made me feel better. And so moving forward in that season, every time I was in defeat, every time I was frustrated, every time I was down, I struck out, I missed a ball, he would yell at me and he'd go, "Richie, what's the most important play?" And I would say the next play. And all of a sudden, like, I didn't have to live in these failures. I realized I wasn't letting my dad down. It was like this thing where all I wanted to do at this point was like, forget about the last play, learn from it, but move on to the next one. And my past failures didn't have to affect me. And I didn't have to fear future failures and future success. It was just like, hey, right now, the most important thing is the next play. And he started doing it with all the players. And we were like an okay team. But even if someone had a great play, he'd be like, "What's the most important play?" And everyone would say the next play and move on. Right. And we went from like an okay team and we won the whole thing that year by him just asking that one question. And that coach changed my life, because every time I was in defeat, and even in the 5th grade, and it was always came down to one question: what's the most important play? The next play. Let's go.
Yeah, no, I love that. And the metaphor of mountaineers, to us, it's the next step. There's only one step that matters, and it's the next one. But in your case, Richie, what I love about this is often as athletes, particularly as kids, if the coaches who are trying to improve us are very focused on the skills, how to hit a curveball better, how to align to a fastball. What you're describing is a coach that didn't focus on the skills. He focused on the mindset. He changed your mindset, and he actually asked you to replace the negative self-talk with what is it? Thinking of the next play. Did you know it then? This was a mindset shift.
I mean, I probably not. I wouldn't say I knew it was a mindset shift in all honesty, but when I would step up to the plate, I would always be thinking about like, oh my God, like I'm going to strike out, or, oh my God, what's my dad going to think about me? Or this guy's so much bigger than me. And this, and it wasn't about that anymore. It was just about, hey, hit the bat to the ball. And if you don't, the only thing that matters is the next pitch. It's like, and so, yeah, I mean, when I look back now, I was like, it was all pure about up here, because, I watched the tapes and I would hit batting practice and I'd get new cleats and get new batting gloves, and nothing worked. And it wasn't until that moment that everything started to change. I didn't continue playing baseball much longer after that, but in football and just in life, it was just thing to the next.
Yet a very simple, yet in your mind, a very powerful element for how you continue to sustain your way to ultimately to choose what you want to do. So let's get to this. Baseball, even though the mindset was now developed, it wasn't baseball. You decided that you wanted to play college football. And for those of you who are on YouTube, or if you're listening on many of our other stations, Richie is not 6'3", 250 pounds. And I'm going to bet you don't run the 40 yards in 4.4 in spite of the size. So in high school, did you play football?
I did play football in high school. I played for my freshman year. I was on the freshman team. I didn't start. Something very cool happened. A brand new school opened and it gave me a door. And so I ended up going to this new school. We didn't have seniors my sophomore year. So I was a sophomore, but I was almost like I was a junior. Right. So I ended up getting in and playing. But yeah, I mean, 5'7", 150 pounds. I didn't have much really any college is looking at me except for maybe some small D3s. And on top of that, my senior year of high school, I completely broke my ankle and shattered it. And I was like, okay, this is going to be really tough from
Right.
this
This
point
this
moving
this is
forward.
not the way that you had planned it. So this is a perfect metaphor for many people who are considering or at least stuck in a particular place where my ankle is broken. I'm not big enough. I'm not fast enough yet. I have a dream and I want to realize that. Take us through that experience. What did
Yeah,
you do in order to get through that?
absolutely. So I actually went to the doctor, and I remember he gave me a choice, and he's like, you can get surgery. You're not playing this year.
Mhm.
Or you can put a cast in this thing, and in 4 weeks, you may potentially have a chance to play, but it's always going to hurt. Like, you're not going to be fresh. And in 4 weeks, that would allow me to play in the last game and then potentially the playoffs if we got there.
Mhm.
And so I had a choice, and it was instant. I said, okay, put it in a cast. Let's go. I'm not getting surgery this year. It's my senior year. I have to play. And so I actually recovered in 3 weeks and then played in the 4th week game. And then there was one final game before the season ended. And this was the final game of my high school career. And we tied all the way until the very end of the game. They kicked the field goal and won, shattered our playoff hopes. But yeah, that was my choice. That was a decision that I had to make.
Yet you use that then to walk onto a college, a big Division I college athletic program. How did you get it? How did that happen? You were not picked.
Not even close. So I'm going to make a long story short here. So I actually went to a school called Jacksonville University. They're so bad of a program they don't even exist anymore. It's not Division I, no athletic scholarships. I went there. I was redshirted, which means I'm ineligible to play in any games. And at the end of the season, this one coach that said, "Hey, you can basically be a walk-on here." This nobody school got fired, and a new coach came in and cut me. And like, obviously that would be the end of the career, right? And I remember sitting in my car, and this was another huge decision in my life, and that was to chase this and find a school that would let me walk on or be done with it. And so I actually made a spreadsheet of all 119 Division I schools, all the recruiting coordinators, and I just started calling.
You were looking at this whole landscape.
Yeah, I was like, I mean, this was a choice. This was a big decision. It was either all in or all out. And I said, you know what? Screw it. Like, here's the one thing, and we'll get to this as we go, but sports has created me into a relentless warrior that just goes after whatever and has the confidence without a shadow of a doubt that I'll figure it out and I'll get to an end result, right? Or somewhere close to it. And that's like what I try to get with our clients and our coach is like, how do we get you to that undeniable confidence that you can go after whatever it is you want, any goal that you want, any process that you want, and know without a shadow of a doubt that you'll get to an end result or close to it, right? And so so I called all the recruiting coordinators. The call was really short. They would ask me my height and weight, and that was the end of the call. And it was done. I actually got invited to FIU, Florida International University, because my head coach knew somebody down there. And I went there. I saw the coach through the glass, and he said that we never had a meeting. It was the most embarrassing thing. I walked out the door. This was it. I go on Facebook, and this was before Facebook was what it is today. How it was like within its second year, but a coach that I had when I was in Little League, and then he was also a coach my senior year, ended up getting an internship for the football team at Ole Miss. And I reached out to him and I was like, Kyle, like, you know me. Can I play there? Can I get in? Can you help me? And he did everything he could. He goes like, in his mind, he's like, he'll never play here, but I'll do whatever I can to try to get him here. And he did. And I got there. I had 1 hour tryout. This was it. So I left Florida, drove all the way up to Oxford, Mississippi. I had 1 hour tryout, and I didn't make the team. And so Kyle literally went to the head coach, which is Coach Ed Ogeron, who was just the head coach at LSU, who won a national championship. He's no longer going to be there, but he was the head coach at Ole Miss. And He went up to him and he goes, look, Richie, he'll never play here. But I promise you this, he'll make everybody around him better.
Yeah.
He'll show people what work ethic really is. He'll be an asset. He'll find a way to be an asset to this team. Give him a chance. So they gave me this 1 week trial. Like, this was it. I put on my pads. I had 1 week. I walked into the locker room. Everyone else had these plated lockers. I had a piece of tape with my name written on it, and that was it. And so went into the locker room. I had 1 week to prove that I could take the hits. I went out there and I was scared as hell. and I would run out into the tunnel and I would get my butt kicked and I would just get up, and it was always, what's the most important play? And I would get up, what's the most important play? Right. And I just did that for the week. And at the end of the week, Coach Ogeron came up to me and he goes, I have no idea what your role here is, but you have a spot on this team. You piss my defensive linemen off so much that they run hard. You make them run like, and that's when I got the nickname Relentless Richie. He goes, you're Relentless Richie. You got a spot. And so, awesome. So that's how I ended up. I didn't get a scholarship that day. It took me 3.5 years, but that's when I got at least onto the practice squad.
Well, this is a really interesting story for many people who are considering a career change or any kind of transition. They are often told you don't have the skill set, you're not the right size, you're not the right build, you're not the right color, all kinds of different things that they are told about. How do I do this? So let's fast forward then, because what you do now, to me, Richie, everything you do seems to be metaphorically what you went through in your own experience. So bring us into the present now, you, your business, and how you inspire others to walk on to their field.
100%. Yeah, man. So the pandemic was the best thing, was a very troubling thing and a sad thing for many people. However, in the business that I had, it took us to new heights, and it showed me what was possible for the future moving forward. It was walking into the FIU office and getting turned down. It was fifth grade. It was the same scenario. I have a fitness facility. We had been working with people and coaching people. I had been traveling the country and speaking and helping organizations, and everything was shut down, and no speaking events. Some went virtual, but very little. Fitness facility shut down. And the partners that I had on that side of the business decided that they were just going to quit. They had no money in the game. I had all the money in the game. So I made some bad business decisions, got exposed. And I'd never been in a lawsuit before, but ended up having to go in a lawsuit. And I laid on I was sitting on my bed, and speaking shut down, got a daughter, wife, and I'm sitting on the bed, and my wife comes in and drops the mail on the bed. And so I'm leaning over the bed, and I open up this letter, and it's from the lawyer. And I just see this bill. And at first I'm just like, I have no idea how I'm going to get out of this mess. Like, this is it was a mess. And the coach, Mike Jallad, when I was a youngin', it came into my mind, and I just pictured him and imagining. He just said to me, Richie, what's the most important play? And I said the next one, and I had tears in my eyes. And this time it wasn't because I was letting my dad down or teammates down. It was because I was worried about letting my family down.
Right.
And so I got up and I said, hey, I've got to get through this. I've got to figure this out. What's my next play right now? Right. And this is where we took the next play to the next level by not just saying, what's your next play, but how do we define it? And I started, and so it's defined by 3 questions. So whenever you're in a state of defeat and frustration and you're stuck, it's defined by 3 questions. What are you going to do? How are you going to do it? When are you going to do it by? Go. And so it was, what am I going to do? I need to find a coach that's going to help me turn this business online. That's number 1. Yep. How am I going to do that? I'm going to go online and start looking when I'm going to have this done by the end of the week. And that was my first week. My thing is I had to find somebody who could help me do this. I have no idea what it looks like. I have no idea, But I did that, and it was one play after the next play. I'm sitting in the facility, everything shut down. I'm like, I would wait till Monday at 4 p.m. because that was what my time when I call was with him. And I'm like, please call me. Because like, I really didn't know like what was going to happen. And 11 months later, we took what was bringing in literally down to $4K a month in the fitness facility to a 7-figure online coaching company in 11 months.
That's fantastic.
So with a full team, yeah, it was, and it was all through what we now call the Next Play accountability system, where it was something I was doing with organizations, but I didn't know how to describe it. And so I did it with the team. That's how I built the team. I'd meet with them every single week. We had weekly goals. We had long-term vision. I coached them through what they wanted, their problem, and then the next play. And I did this with my team, and they started doing it with their coaching clients. And all of a sudden the reviews started coming in. I'd go on Google Relentless Warrior Fitness, and I'd see these amazing reviews and these before and after pictures. And I'm like, so I'm doing this with my team. we're doing it with our coaching clients. And then this is really where, when it got to the next level, is I had a couple corporate clients that I had been working with that were stuck and their sales weren't consistent and they couldn't get past a certain place, and they wanted to grow, but every time they would start to grow, they would lose profits. And so a lot of it had to do with inconsistent sales teams and no structure throughout the organization. And so what I did is for a year, I'd fly out literally to take a look at the business, talk to their managers, talk to the sales team. And so we started implementing the Next Play accountability system, the same thing we were using that grew us by 10x in 11 months. And all of a sudden it was the same result. I'd come into the manager meetings with all these sales managers, and it was, hey, what were your wins for the week, and what's your next play for this week? And so the same weekly huddles, the same one-on-one Next Play coaching sessions with the managers, and then they were doing it with their sales team. And all of a sudden the consistency started to come up, and I was like, this is amazing. All of a sudden their revenue started to go up drastically, like 24% in a very short period of time. I think 18% for the year, but it took flying out and going there every month, and with 3 different organizations. And I was still doing it with my company at the same time. And now we're rolling this out, and we're starting to roll it out with multiple different companies where, culturally they have very little structure. The sales is very inconsistent. They can't get their sales team to do the things that they want. The sales managers have no sense of coaching. So they're not coaching their team. They're just managing them. And every time they're in defeat, the churn and turnover is really high. And so it's really cool, man. And it's super exciting. So these turnarounds are 12 weeks now. So we did it in a year, and now we've got it down. We're doing these, basically, I guess you can call them turnaround, where we're implementing this culture of this relentless culture using the Next Play accountability system. So accountability from top to bottom. Right. And now we're able to implement it in 12 weeks. So
wow. So you accelerated, cool. you compressed the amount of time from start to, let's call it, finish. But Richie, the best part of this is the muscle memory you developed as a child, where you began to see what success looked like if I just concentrate on the next play. And then here you are many years later, taking the same, what is really an accessible framework of mindset, to stop drowning out all these other things that could go wrong and simply focus on the next play. I take it this was strategic. You relied on this thing that helped you, and then you formed that in order to help others with the same framework.
Exactly. And when I saw it was working on an individual level, right, I was like, this is awesome, man. This is like, no more going and speaking and teaching a reaction. No more telling people to believe in themselves.
Right.
None of that garbage.
Yeah, there's enough of that, because right now this is very actionable, because what you were doing in the demonstration of the success is, this is not just, be the best you can be. And that's all good. You appreciate the affirmations, but they don't transfer necessarily into action. You have figured out a way to take that mindset and turn it into action. Well done.
Oh, I appreciate it, man. Yeah.
And who do you help? Let's think about who is listening that may feel like, if this resonates, Give me a profile. What's it like?
Absolutely. So typically we're working with sales teams that have at least one manager, typically 5 to 15 managers or
Okay.
up. So,
Okay.
and then have a, let's say 3 to 10 salespeople under each manager or more. So like,
Right.
for example, one of the companies they have 40 sales managers, and underneath them, they all have about 10 sales reps.
Okay.
But they're trying to grow, and they're trying to get to 16. And the sales managers are like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like, we're not ready. There's no structure. There's no one-on-ones. There's no weekly huddles. There's no accountability system. And so, yeah. So typically those are the organizations where we can come in and implement this accountability structure where there's no missing links. There's no holes. There's consistency across the board. And it's also retention. Like, we found that, you're going to have people who are like, accountability, I'm not down for that. And so having certain conversations to remove ego out of it is important. But also, when sales reps feel like every week I'm getting coached, I'm excited to be on the huddles, and I'm excited to get in my coaching session, because I know I'm going to get better. I know I'm going to make more. I know I'm going to make a bigger impact on my clients. And so we've seen retention has been a big part of this as well, as hiring. It's like, oh, cool, I can be a part of that. I want to do that. I want to be there.
Right. It sounds like the engagement starts with some consulting consideration. You have to assess, like a good team, assess what it is you may ultimately coach. What does that look like?
Yeah. So first thing I do is a keynote or a workshop or a masterclass. So this could be a half day, or, typically a 1 hour to a half day. I've done a 2-day before. It just really depends on how engaged and how bad they want it in the beginning. Right. But what I do on the front side is I meet with the CEO. I meet with at least a minimum of 2 of the sales managers, and then a minimum of 2 of the sales reps, depending on what their challenges are. So I could see from the CEO's point of view, the training manager, the VP's point of view, as well as the manager's point of view and the sales rep's point of view. Then I can kind of customize the workshop and masterclass, deliver it. And then after that, it's like, how do we implement this in the shortest period of time? So
and do you see commonalities? Are there 1 or 2 key things that you see across each of these kinds of engagements?
You mean as far as challenges that they have, or?
Yes, those challenges. Are there common challenges across organizations that have nothing to do with each other, but you see them through a lens of the relentless warrior?
Yeah. So growth is one of them. So like trying to grow, but every time we hire more people, or things kind of get lost in translation. So there's not good structure.
Right.
Retention, hiring is a big one, especially for our clients in California. But if we can enter them into and show them how they're going to be coached and what the process is like, it's really help. And then consistency is a big one. So a lot of times their sales reps are all over the place. Great months, bad months, great months, bad months. Right. So consistency, communication, structure, and then obviously it makes a big impact when it comes to retention and hiring too. So those would be the biggies that we see.
And how long have you been doing this?
So we've been doing this for 2 years. Yeah. So as far as like the implementation of the Next Play accountability system in companies, well, it started right just after the pandemic. And so we started implementing and getting this into a 12-week time plan frame over the past year. So
gotcha. Yeah, no, definitely. Because it's interesting.
It's a short period of time.
Well, it is. Well, it's interesting now as we mark history, what happened pre-COVID, what did you do during COVID, and what does the world going to look like when we get out of this one day? But here's the most interesting part that I'd love to hear from you. What did Relentless Richie learn about yourself as you were evolving through this, helping others? Anything new and insights into your own mind and heart?
100%, man. I think the big thing is like, I always, anytime I was in the fourth quarter or when it was overtime and my back was against the wall, I would get down. I would get anxious. I would get frustrated, sometimes even depressed. And I would just wake up the next day and I would be at my desk at 4:30 in the morning, and I never thought anything of it. It was just like the way I lived. And it wasn't until the pandemic, and I actually met some really cool guys that I think you know as well. And they said, dude, like, you have something that a lot of people really, really want. And you've got to be able to teach them how to do it. And I'm like, I'm speaking around the country and I'm teaching people how to be relentless. And he's like, but those are all, you're sharing them your reactions, the things that you react, like how you react to scenarios, but you're not teaching them a process.
Right.
And so I sat back and I thought, and I was like, I want to help people on a deeper level, but it wasn't until I understood myself first. Right.
Right.
And I'm just like, I'm a normal person. I'm just like anybody else in a sense that like I hurt, I have pain, I have anxiety. I just don't wake up every day like relentless. Like it's not how, that's not reality. Like just like during the beginning of the pandemic, when I was looking at my phone, like, please call me. Like that was a serious feeling, and one that like I'll never forget. Yeah, I'll never forget that feeling. But I also know the other side of it. And I found a confidence in myself that I'll never let go. And it's something I've learned since 5th grade on. And that's that no matter what happens with my back against the wall, I never have to be depressed. I never have to be anxious. I never have to be down, because I always know without a shadow of a doubt that I have the next play and that I can move forward and that I'll figure it out. And I want the people that I work with to have that. I want them to know without a shadow of a doubt, no matter their backs against the wall, they have deaths, they have their business is falling apart, their things are falling apart, there is the next play. You don't have to live in anxiety and depression and frustration and nothing's going to work out for you. You can have what you want, but the only thing and the most important play right now for you is the next one.
The next one. That's such a beautiful framework. And I would imagine many of the people who begin to adopt it, you begin to see changes in them.
And that's the most rewarding part. We do weekly group coaching calls, and just watching the growth is just absolutely out of this world. It's why I do it. And it is the most fulfilling and rewarding feeling. It's more rewarding of a feeling than earning the scholarship after 4 years at Ole Miss or writing the book, or all that stuff nothing compares to hearing that story and watching people emotionally transform their life and their businesses. It's really cool, man.
Well, I have to say, as I was prepping for this meeting, after we had met before that, and I was in your website and reading your materials, it was so clear. You are an individual who wakes up every day. You have made that strategic and intentional decision that, based upon whatever may have happened in your past, that may have happened to you, but you got to decide who you wanted to be. And who you are, Richie, is someone who wakes up in the service of inspiring others to be able to figure out what is their next play. And I got to say, from one coach to another, thank you for the wonderful work you put into the universe.
Absolutely, man. And I appreciate you, because it's leaders like you that pave the way for someone like myself. So
well, I appreciate
to
that.
you.
No, but watching what you came through and how you work through it, and now you so unselfishly dedicate yourself to help others go through the same. This is just awesome. It's not only inspiring, it's just the actionable part, and then the results that you were able to help others to achieve. You're changing lives. That's beautiful.
100%.
Well, let's get through the vitals then. And before we get to contact information, Richie, for all of the people who are listening to your story, I always ask, and I do this on most shows, for all those who are unsure, maybe they're stuck, they don't know what their next play is, what do you want them to think, feel, and do, given all of those things that are in front of them? Think, feel, do. If you could talk to yourself many years ago, maybe it's the conversation you would have with yourself that I want others to key into. What do you want them to think? What do you want them to feel? What do you want them to do?
Okay, so great question. Let's start with think.
Yep.
I want them to stop thinking about all their past failures.
Right. Good.
I want them to stop thinking about all the things that may potentially happen in the future. Not planning, but all the negative things that could happen in the future. Oh my God, what will people think about me? What if I fail? What if I succeed?
Right.
And I want you to think right now about the present moment, right now. The past,
Gone.
no. The future, too far in the future, no.
Right.
We don't. You're in the first quarter. You're on the first drive. It's
Right.
1st and 10. You just got on the field and you're thinking about, what if we get into overtime? No. Right now.
Right now.
So how do I want you to feel? I want you to feel what you feel. Like if you feel frustrated and you're anxious, or you've got depression, or you've gone through something bad, you have to feel it. Like and some people are like, you don't ever feel it. Like, no, that's not realistic, right? Like that's not a real thing.
Right.
Feel it, remember it. Just like 3-4 minutes ago on this call, I remembered a feeling, but that helps me. And I feel like remembering where you are is so important. Were you going to say something?
Well, you're telling him, don't hide it. Don't pretend it doesn't exist. Face it.
Yes. 100%.
Okay.
Yes.
What do you want
Absolutely.
What do you want him to do with all of this?
I want you to ask yourself 3 questions. Okay. After you already know what's the most important play is the next one, right? Yep. We're not in the future. We're not in the past. 3 questions right now.
Yep.
What's the most important thing you can do right now?
What's the most important thing? I'm going to repeat this. What's the most important thing you can do right now? 2.
How are you going to do it?
How are you going to do it?
And when are you going to do it by?
When are you going to do it by? Give yourself that deadline.
Exactly. And the reason all 3 of those are critical is what you're going to do. Obviously, you got to know what you're going to do. Yep. But so many people decide they're going to do something and they don't know how. And so it never happens.
Right.
So if you don't know how to do it, we live in a world you can find out how. Yep. And if you can't, then it's too big of a thing. Start smaller.
Right.
And figure out how to do that. But if you don't know how, nothing will get done. So we got to know how. Don't ever tell it as a leader though, right? You can't tell someone what to do if they don't know how to do it. It's never going to happen. Right. And then when are you going to do it by? Set yourself a time you're going to finish it.
And I think there's a good football metaphor here, because football's a game it's tactical. It's a game of continual adjustments. What are you going to do? And you do it, even if it's not perfect and it's not, the defense wasn't supposed to be there. I would imagine your entire teaching program is based on helping people recognize the series of continual adjustments, that the play isn't fixed. You can work with it, because not everyone gets that message. Expand on that for just a moment.
Yeah, I mean, so this happens all the time, right? So a coach calls a play and Tom Brady walks up to the line of scrimmage and the defense is not in the play formation that they want. And so he walks up and he looks and he sees the 2 linebackers coming down for a blitz. You see him, Peyton Manning does this, right? Omaha, they walk down. Right. Yep. And you look at them and, hey, you got to call an audible. So if you walk up to the line of scrimmage and you're like, this ain't the right play, this isn't the right play, then, hey, we got to call an audible. So absolutely. Like we, we can get deeper and deeper and deeper, but as that 100%, like if you walk up to the plate and the play that was called is not the correct play, especially in business, this happens all. It's very fluid, right? So if you walk up to the plate and that it's not the right play, call an audible for sure.
And I say that, Richie, because I think we do very similar things, but we work with people who don't often understand or appreciate the importance of that adaptability. Whereas when we give an instruction, we try to be inspirational, but recognize that you don't have to, what you're doing right now, however you choose to do it, you can adjust, but for God's sakes, do it. Many people are just afraid to take that next step. Do you find that as well?
Absolutely. Right. And that stems from fear, right? Like it's just like, oh my God. Well, and that's ultimately the end result of implementing the next place, accountability system and the next place strategy is that you completely eliminate failure. You eliminate fear, because there is no failure, Chuck. There's only what?
Feedback.
There's only what? Feedback. Yeah, there's only the next play. There's feedback. There's only the next. Every time you fail, and when you meet with your team, right? This is what we teach. If you have weekly one-on-one, every time you meet with your team, you go over the past week, the KPIs, the numbers, and then you set your next play for the following week with them, and you meet and you go over the next weeks. But there is no failure. There's only the next play. And when you live like that, there is. I used to teach, Chuck. I spent 6 years traveling the country, and I used to teach people how to overcome fear, how to overcome failure. Now I teach people how to completely eliminate it from their life.
Right. That's beautiful. But it's always the next play. And Richie, where do our listeners and our viewers, thank you for always coming in on YouTube. Where do they find you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm on YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram. It's Relentless Richie. So it's easy to find me on those. And, or you can go to relentlessrichie.com if you want to reach out and email myself or one of my team members. We'll send it to me, but I'll definitely get back to you. I look at everything. And so, yeah, feel free to reach out.
I appreciate that. Well, and to our listeners, you know that there are a few people I like to quote, but in this case, what is most pertinent is Carl Jung, the great psychologist, was once quoted as having said, "I am not what happened to me. I am who I choose to become." Relentless Richie, from the time he was in 5th grade, had things that happened to him that may have knocked him off his perch. They may have been an enormous cause of anxiety, frustration, and even depression. But Richie in 5th grade decided, "I am not what happened to me. I am who I choose to become." He continued to walk through that adversity, through the ups and the downs, and ultimately has dedicated his life to help others with their next play. He is such a brimming example of he is not what happened to him. Richie, you are who you choose to become, and who you choose to become is just a wonderful thing. And I thank you for coming onto the show and for the wonderful contribution you make to others.
Well, it was a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much. And I look forward to having you on my show as well.
I appreciate that, Richie. And to our listeners, you have listened to Chuck Garcia on A Climb to the Top, Stories of Transformation. You can watch us on YouTube, and you can hear us on C-Suite Radio, Amazon, Spotify, all those places, wherever you get your podcasts. You can always check in on chuckgarcia.com. Drop us a line. Let us know how we are doing, and we are grateful for all of your support. Richie, thank you so much for coming onto the show. Look forward to collaborating again.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. Have a great